How do we make advertisers more excited about innovation in and around the radio experience, no matter how we define it?
I'm so glad you asked me that. I think it's a fabulous thing. I mean, in any innovation process, the answer is that you need to get people on board very early. You know, you need to get people involved in the conversation. The way that you create products has got to be much more fluid. It's got to be much more continual and evolutionary. It's got to include the whole range of people, including the customers, including the intermediaries, kind of from the start. And it's got to take them on a journey, you know, with you as you explore what's possible. And you know, I think one of the big things that's connected with that is about being willing to fail. You know, it's about being willing to go out there to try something and to admit that you're not going to be perfect the first time around, but to make damn sure that you learn loads from that. You know, it's like so many trials. It's pretty incredible. So many trials are done, and this is a situation I've been in recently with a client, and they've said, "Look, we've done 1 million trials on this stuff. We're ready to go." And I said, "Okay, where's the learning from those trials?" And they said, yeah, well, don't know. Not quite sure. We know we've done the trials. They've been done, you know, but we don't actually know what we've learned from them. Which sounds fantastic, but I swear that is a real situation. And you know, it's so I think, you know, I think the radio players, all of the players involved in the radio world, they've got to go out there. They've got to get real stuff into market. They've got to be willing to accept that real stuff is maybe not going to be perfect first time around. But they've got to make damn sure that when they do that and the way they do that, they learn loads from it, and people get bought in more and more to the idea that this is heading in a useful and a valuable direction. You know.
Mm-hmm. Now, when I was setting up this conversation with you, one of your associates asked me this question. She said, "Well, you know, we've been doing a little work around radio, but." You know, what is radio? Is radio a distribution channel, or is radio a content creator? So, you know, my answer to that is yes. What's yours?
So, from a design perspective, I would say, you know, radio is what what people consume. You know, I think I kind of mentioned this early on. It's like radio. The word radio is based on radio waves. It's based on RF frequency transmissions. It's based on the same stuff that transmits TV and the same stuff that microwaves your chicken and stuff like that. It's all the same thing, and it's all basically radio. But who cares about that? That's not the point. You know, that may be what.
If we could microwave your chicken, that would add a significant value proposition, right?
You know, if you've got that button on your radio, you could go a long way. McDonald's would be interested, you know. But so you've got to make it an interesting conversation, to make it useful. And it's like, well, you know, part of the question in that is, well, what's a useful way of thinking about this? Then you've got to take what people really get out of radio, and so there's the customer angle, that's for sure, and that's, you know, somebody gets real value out of that. But there's the other partners as well. In particular, there's commercial partners. There's the advertisers. What do they get out of it? I mean, one of the huge criticisms I would have of most media is that everybody has become completely hamstrung by media sales. And this includes this. Television is the same. Magazines, newspaper publishing is the same. A big chunk of their revenue, whenever you look across the sort of the spreadsheets and so on, a big chunk of their revenue comes directly out of media buyers, the media buying agencies' coffers, and they negotiate that stuff on behalf of their clients. And this is a huge disintermediation between the consumers and the advertisers, you know, and with the media sitting in between, but actually the media isn't even properly got that relationship, because the advertising agencies and the media buying agencies are between them and their clients, and ultimately between the consumers and, you know, and the content and their clients. And that industry has been really consolidated around sort of algorithms and around something that is convenient to media buyers, but is not necessarily actually useful for the industry anymore.
That's a really interesting point. What you're saying is that the media buying process, where most radio stations in the U.S. get the vast majority of their revenue, that element not only does it disintermediate, but it doesn't have to do with what the consumers get out of the medium, and it doesn't have to do necessarily with what the advertisers get out of the medium, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And some of the most interesting experiments. So it's really interesting to see that advertorials have become kind of a bad word in certain circles, but some of the things that are creating the most interest, but generally at the moment are on a more limited scale, or whenever you basically sidestep the media agencies who are saying, here's a certain price for a certain slot and, blah, blah, blah. And they start talking directly to the advertisers, and they start saying, look, here's our customer base. Here are the people who are listening to us. Here's what they love and they don't love, and so on. And here's how it might fit with your brand and how it might fit with the things that you're really interested in. Let's not get stuck with the kind of the 10-second slot or the 30-second slot or whatever it might be.
Or the cost per point, or the cost per point equation.
Yeah, exactly. And let's say, what can we really do for art? What can you, Mr. Brands, do for my audience as a radio station that's going to really make them excited, And even from whenever you start trying to create that opportunity, that actually also works for the agencies the creative agencies are in this equation, because instead of them having to churn out another slot for whatever against some sort of demographic targeting profile or whatever it is, they're being given a real opportunity to try and create something of real value and of real interest. Mm-hmm. So I think that whole area, it's something that people are beginning to ask us questions about. It's they're saying we need to make our media space and our portfolio work harder for us, either as a media owner or mm-hmm. Or some others as well. But what can we do about it? How can we create something where A, it's going to be of real interest, and B, we're going to be able to get people on board with it, and it's not so that I think that's kind of state of the art for us, and it's definitely an unfolding question that hasn't really been cracked yet.
And what you're talking about really is kind of setting aside the whole cost per point method of one to many of advertising, and saying instead, what's the idea that links the consumers on one end via the radio station or the radio set of assets with the advertiser on the other end and its needs, whatever they are, right?
Totally, and it's a really fascinating kind of thing to start diving into, because I think what that sort of cost per point thing has done is that it's just sort of standardized the whole question and taken out any real insight or understanding from it, and it's just said, look, it doesn't matter what people actually want, either from the consumer side or the brand side, this is what you're getting, it's like whatever the question is, here's the answer, and which is convenient. It's definitely convenient, and at the point, what happens is really interesting actually from inside the industry perspective, because I've worked with guys who back in the sort of 60s and 70s, they were in the ad agencies and stuff, and this is when they sort of started breaking out the media buying from advertising and sort of created that split inside the industry. And basically, it's just really clear what happened. There was a bunch of people who saw dollar signs about how they could take where the big money was going, mm-hmm. break that off, and just make a lot of money out of it, and that's what's happened. And along the way, the purpose of it has been completely lost,
Now, that leads to my last question for you, because I've used a lot of your time. And that last question is, here's my observation. I think it relates to the point you're making there. That is that in a traditional radio station, you have two sides. You have the content side or the programming side, and you have the sales side. The one side is selling the spots to interrupt the programming, and the other side is creating the programming that creates the ratings that gets interrupted by the spots. And historically, they've been, at loggerheads. They've been against each other. It seems to me, in this day and age, in part explained by the point you just made, that this is the first time in the history of broadcasting where they're actually on the same side of the table. Because if I'm creating content, I'm creating it across platforms, and that content has to be popular enough such that the advertisers are interested in wrapping their identities around it. Meanwhile, the advertising has to be compelling enough to be part of the content mix rather than an interruption to it. So both people, for the first time ever, sales and content, are on the side of creating compelling content that appeals both to advertisers and consumers and furthers the goals of each. True or false?
Absolutely, unequivocally, massively true. That ought to be one of the most exciting opportunities that anybody's got. That ought to be an opportunity for people to get the hell out of the kind of the rat race predefined ABC. Not really adding any creativity, not really sort of adding any real value, and into a world of explore now. Now the one of the big holdbacks I think on a personal on a really sort of human and personal level is that people are scared of failing.
Mm-hmm.
They're scared of doing something and at messing up, and in the meantime, sort of alienating big revenue streams and things like that. And I think going back to what good product design looks like and good service design looks like, and people have got to create some space to be able to experiment with these things. Nobody is going to be able to create some magic bullet answer, just like that, or it's unlikely anyway. But what will work, what will time and everything proves will work really well, is to create spaces for innovation and experimentation, and to make sure that you pull the advertisers into that, the consumers into that, the sales teams into that, the schedulers into that, the hosts, the DJs. I mean, bring these people together and say, look, this isn't about failure. This isn't about right or wrong, or whatever. This is about doing the right thing. This is about creating quality. This is about creating value. This is about making customers happy. This is about oral pleasure. This is about this is about enjoyment. This is about making what you do fun and valuable and exciting for everybody. So let's play. Let's experiment. Let's enjoy this. And I think a great thing about radio is that the opportunity to do that quickly and to innovate quickly is probably greater than in many other mediums, because the sort of the cost of production and is just that much. It's that much easier to edit, to turn things around, to try things quickly and see how it goes. So it's a fabulous opportunity, and it's a real, from a broad media perspective, from outside looking into the industry. It's kind of slightly a mystery, although if you pick around the edges, you can have a guess why. But it's certainly a massive disappointment that what ought to be a place for massive innovation really isn't at the moment. And that's an opportunity.
Well, let this conversation be the beginning of a new phase for radio and broadcasting.
I hope so.
Kaihaan Jamshidi is the Director of Strategy for Method.com, a fabulous brand experience company, an independent design and innovation company that works with lots of great clients, based out of the UK. Kay, thank you so much for your time today.
Pleasure. Lovely to talk to you. Cheers.